Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. New York City shone under the autumn lights, the streets bathed in orange reflections and flashes of window displays. In the heart of this bustling city, Clara Johnson, 28, was finishing her long workday at the Emerald Garden, a restaurant renowned for its refined cuisine and impeccable service. Her hands were slightly shaky from fatigue, but her smile never left her. A waitress since she was 18, Clara had learned to juggle work, responsibilities, and the painful memories of a lonely childhood. Orphaned since the age of 12, she had grown up in a foster home where every stolen smile and every gesture of affection was precious. The photos of her childhood, stored in an old box forgotten under her bed, reminded her of both the warmth of rare happy moments and the emptiness left by her parents' absence. Her brown eyes, large and expressive, had learned to hide sadness behind a sparkle of determination. That evening, as she was putting away the last trays in the kitchen, the manager handed her a white envelope bearing his name. "For you, Clara," he said with an intrigued smile. Clara frowned. Private invitations to homes were not common in her world. She opened the envelope cautiously and discovered a letter, elegantly handwritten in black ink. Mademoiselle Johnson. I would like to invite you to dinner at my home. This is not an ordinary date. I simply want to meet you and discuss something very important to you. Sincerely, Alexander Whitmore. Her heart leaped. Alexander Whitmore, a regular at the restaurant, a wealthy and mysterious man, always elegant in his tailored suits, but who rarely spoke of his private life. Clara wondered why this man was inviting her, a simple waitress, into his sumptuous home. Was it the whim of a wealthy man? Some kind of joke? She couldn't guess, but an irresistible curiosity gripped her. After a few minutes of hesitation, she decided to accept. She carefully placed the letter in her bag, adjusted her simple but neat outfit, and took a taxi to the address provided. Whitmore's limousine was waiting for her in front of the villa, and as soon as she stepped into the entrance hall, she was struck by the opulence that surrounded her. Crystal chandeliers illuminated a perfectly polished parquet floor, and antique paintings framed the walls, telling stories from centuries past. But what immediately caught her eye was a small photograph, perched on a marble shelf, protected by a delicately carved wooden frame. It was a black and white photo of a little girl, who looked uncannily like her. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Her hands trembled as she approached it. The child in the photo had the same large brown eyes, the same shy smile, and the same sweet, determined expression. It was her, when she was 8 years old. At that precise moment, Clara felt a mixture of shock, disbelief, and curiosity. How could her childhood face have ended up here, in the house of a man she barely knew? Alexander Whitmore, standing a few feet away, watched her calmly. His eyes, sharp but kind, seemed to read every thought that crossed Clara's mind. "I suppose you're wondering how this photo got here," he said in a deep but warm voice. Clara couldn't answer. She felt this wasn't going to be an ordinary dinner. She felt she was about to discover a secret that would turn her life upside down, a secret buried since childhood, an invisible link between her painful past and the man who, unbeknownst to her, had watched over her all these years. Destiny had just knocked on her door, and Clara Johnson had no idea of the adventure that awaited her. The black limousine glided silently down the cobblestone driveway lined with majestic trees. Clara, her heart pounding, gazed through the window at the perfectly manicured gardens and fountains sparkling under the lights. Every detail exuded wealth and luxury, a world so far removed from her everyday reality. She felt both intimidated and curious. When the vehicle stopped in front of the villa, Alexander Whitmore was waiting for her on the steps. Tall, elegant, and dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit, he gave her a warm but mysterious smile. Clara stepped out, a little hesitant, and felt the softness of the carpet that led to the front door. The air was fragrant with rare flowers, carefully arranged along the driveway. "Welcome, Miss Johnson," Whitmore said, opening the door. His voice, deep and calm, seemed almost reassuring. "I'm delighted you accepted my invitation." Clara nodded, unable to find the words. The entrance hall was immense, with polished oak floors that gleamed under the crystal chandeliers. The walls were decorated with antique portraits and paintings depicting scenes of nature and family, each telling a silent story. She noticed bronze sculptures and antique vases carefully placed, each object seeming to have been chosen to impress and inspire. "Can I buy you a drink?" Whitmore asked. "Or would you prefer to start with a tour?" Clara chose the tour, hoping to gain a better understanding of the world she had just entered. Whitmore escorted her through the main living room, a spacious room where cream leather sofas and Persian rugs sat alongside bookcases filled with rare books. But what immediately caught her eye was a lone shelf near a marble fireplace. On it, a framed black and white photograph captivated her gaze. Clara approached slowly. Her breath caught when she recognized the little girl's face in the photo, her big brown eyes, her shy but bright smile, her familiar features. It was her, as a child. Time seemed to stand still. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the frame, as if each second was laden with ancient emotions, memories buried for years. Whitmore, standing behind her, watched her reaction calmly. "I suppose you're wondering how this photo got here," he said quietly. Clara turned around, her eyes shining with disbelief. It's me," she whispered, almost as if saying the words would make them seem unreal. Whitmore nodded, his head gravely yet kindly. "Yes, Miss Johnson. It's you. This photo. I found it among some old documents and objects I acquired at an auction. It caught my eye, and I wanted to show it to you." Clara felt a mixture of confusion and intense emotion. She had grown up without tangible memories of her childhood, without images to connect the fragments of her memory to a concrete reality. And now, here in this sumptuous house, a man she barely knew was revealing a mysterious link to her past. Whitmore added, with an enigmatic smile, "I know this may all seem strange, but I've been following your journey for a long time. And I think it's time you knew why." Clara took a deep breath. Part of her wanted to run away, unable to understand how her ordinary life could suddenly become entangled with this luxurious and mysterious world. But another part, more curious, more daring, wanted to know. To know why this photo was here, why this man seemed to know her better than she knew herself, and above all, what this dinner would reveal about her past. Dinner, she thought, wasn't just a meal. It was the beginning of an adventure that would change her life, showing her that sometimes, fate had plans that could neither be predicted nor ignored. Clara stood frozen in front of the photograph, unable to tear her eyes away from the familiar childlike face. The world around her seemed to vanish, the glittering chandeliers, the polished oak floor, the paintings and sculptures faded away, leaving only that innocent face and her, an adult, before it. Alexander Whitmore, aware of the effect of this discovery, let her breathe. "Take your time, Clara," he said softly. "I know this is a lot to take in." Clara finally found her voice, weak but determined. How did this photo get here?" Whitmore stepped forward and placed a delicate hand on the shelf. "I acquired it at an auction of vintage orphanage memorabilia." The image immediately spoke to me. I've never forgotten that day, almost 20 years ago. I knew I had to meet you one day. Clara shook her head in disbelief. "But, why me? I'm just a waitress. There's nothing special about me." Whitmore smiled with a gentleness that belied his imposing stature. "You are much more than you realize. Since childhood, you have demonstrated rare resilience and strength. I have followed your journey. Your life, your choices, your struggles, and you have become exactly the person I knew you could become." Clara felt her eyes fill with tears. Part of her wanted to run away, because it all seemed too strange to be real. But another part, the part that had always sought guidance, a presence, support, wanted to understand. She took a deep breath and asked, You knew me all this time?" Whitmore nodded. "Not directly. I funded certain programs at the orphanage where you grew up, ensuring you had access to education and certain opportunities. I watched from afar, hoping one day to cross your path. Tonight, that moment has arrived. Clara sat down in a leather armchair, overcome with emotion. Her mind replayed memories of her youth, homes, lost photos, nights spent dreaming of a better world. She never imagined someone watching over her, silently, from the shadows. Whitmore sat down across from her. I didn't organize this dinner to stroke your ego or impress you. There's something I want to offer you, something that could change not only your life, but the lives of many young women in your situation. Clara looked at him carefully, her eyes still wet. What? She asked, her voice trembling. I want you to work with me on a humanitarian project for orphan girls. Your experience, your courage, and your personal story can inspire and guide these young girls. You can show them that it is possible to overcome pain and build a life despite hardship. Clara felt her heart race. She had spent years surviving, working hard, keeping a low profile, and now a millionaire man was offering to turn her pain into strength, to give meaning to everything she had been through. But an inner voice reminded her of the dangers and doubts, leaving her job, diving into a world she didn't know, revealing herself publicly. It wasn't going to be easy. Yet, as she looked at Alexander Whitmore, she understood that this was no mere coincidence. Fate, in a mysterious and silent way, had just extended a helping hand to her. Clara took a deep breath, staring at the photo of her childhood. A mixture of fear and curiosity filled her. She knew her life would never be the same after tonight. The silence in the living room was almost palpable. Clara, still in shock from the discovery of the photo, tried to comprehend the situation. Alexander Whitmore settled into an armchair opposite her, his hands clasped in his lap, his gaze penetrating but kind. I guess you're wondering why I've followed you for so long, he began softly. Clara nodded, unable to utter a word. Every fiber of her being screamed both fear and hope. I never sought to impose myself on your life or influence your choices directly, Whitmore continued. But I knew your family. Your parents, they were close friends. When they died tragically, I felt the need to look out for you, however discreetly. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. She had never spoken about her parents to anyone except the social workers and the children at the home. How could this man know their story? Whitmore leaned forward slightly. I funded some educational programs at the orphanage where you grew up. I made sure you had access to the best possible opportunities, even if you didn't know anyone cared. Every small success you had, every step you took toward independence, I watched closely. Clara felt her eyes fill with tears. For years, she had believed she was alone in this world, that no one truly cared about her. And yet, this mysterious man had been there, silent but constant, watching over her like an invisible angel. But why invite me tonight, now? She finally asked, her voice trembling. Whitmore smiled, a smile that mixed pride with suppressed emotion. Because you're ready, Clara. Ready to use your past to inspire and help other young girls going through the same things you did. I wanted you to know the truth before I offered you this mission. You deserve to know that someone believed in you from the start. Clara felt an intense mixture of gratitude and confusion. Everything she'd been through, all the struggles, all the nights she'd thought she'd never get through, had been witnessed and supported by someone who'd never sought to be known. It was both comforting and overwhelming. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her throat tight. You don't need to say anything now, Whitmore replied calmly. Take time to think. But know this, your life has meaning, Clara. And that meaning can be shared to transform the lives of other young girls, to give them the hope and courage you have found despite everything. Clara took a deep breath, trying to calm her whirling mind. She thought of her youth, the lonely nights at home, the times she had dreamed of a better life without ever imagining that one day, someone would be watching and supporting her from the shadows. For the first time in years, she felt she wasn't alone. That someone truly believed in her. And that she could believe in herself, too. Whitmore then stood up, and with a simple but meaningful gesture, extended his hand. I'm offering you a chance, Clara. A chance to transform your past into strength, and become a light for others. Clara took his hand, feeling a comforting warmth pass between them. This was the beginning of an unexpected adventure, the moment her life would change forever. She knew she had just walked through a door from which she could never turn back. And, for the first time, the future seemed filled with possibility, hope, and reconciliation with her past. The living room, lit by the soft glow of crystal lamps, suddenly felt more intimate. Clara, still reeling from Whitmore's revelations, sat across from him, her hands resting on her knees, trying to regain some semblance of calm. Every beat of her heart reminded her that her life had just changed. Whitmore looked at her intently, his eyes sharp but kind. "Clara, I didn't invite you here tonight just to show you this picture," he began. "I want to propose something very important to you." Clara frowned, puzzled. "What?" she asked, her voice still shaky. Whitmore stood up and opened a large cabinet built into the wall. He took out several carefully organized files, photos, and documents. He placed them in front of her. "I created a humanitarian project to help orphan girls overcome difficulties and find their way. I want you to be at the heart of this project. Your experiences, your story, and your strength can inspire and guide these young girls." Clara felt a mixture of wonder and disbelief. She had grown up believing her voice and her experiences were worthless, that her painful past was nothing more than a burden. And now this millionaire man was offering her the opportunity to transform her pain into strength, to become a role model for others going through the same challenges. "But, me? A waitress," she murmured. "Why me and not someone else?" Whitmore sat down again, this time closer to her, and gently replied, "Because you are exceptional. Your resilience, your empathy, and your ability to understand the suffering of others, all of this makes you the perfect person for this role. You've been through what these girls are going through today. You know what it's like to feel alone, lost, and without direction. And you've overcome it all. Who better to show them that there is hope than you?" Clara felt her eyes fill with tears. She had never thought her past could have any value, or that her life would have an impact on the lives of others. Every word Whitmore said resonated deeply within her, awakening a mixture of fear and excitement. I don't know if I'm ready for this," she whispered. "I mean, quitting my job, coming out publicly, it's huge." Whitmore smiled understandingly. "You don't have to decide tonight. Take some time to think. But know that this opportunity isn't just a job. It's a chance to transform your story, to give meaning to everything you've been through, and to change the lives of many young girls who need you." Clara took a deep breath and stared at the childhood photo on the shelf. She remembered the little girl she had been, vulnerable, scared, but with an inner strength she had only just begun to understand. And now, that strength could be used for something bigger than herself. "Okay," she said finally, her voice soft but determined. "I want to try. I want to help these girls. I want to turn my past into strength." Whitmore extended his hand, and Clara shook it firmly. This simple gesture marked the beginning of a collaboration that would transform her life and the lives of the young women she would mentor. For the first time in a long time, Clara felt a surge of pure hope wash over her. The future, previously uncertain and frightening, now seemed filled with possibility and promise. She had crossed a threshold, her life was about to change, and she was ready to face whatever this new world had to offer. The next morning, Clara couldn't sleep. The previous day's revelations swirled through her mind like an unpredictable wind. The childhood photo, Whitmore's secret, and the opportunity she'd been given mingled with her long-repressed childhood memories. Sitting in her small apartment, a cup of coffee in hand, she let herself be carried away by her thoughts. She remembered the cold mornings at home, when the gray light of day barely filtered through the small windows. Children ran through the hallways, some laughing, others crying silently. She remembered her loneliness, the constant absence of parents, and the emptiness that no amount of affection could fill. And then there had been moments of light, the rare kind teachers, the smiles of friends at home, the feeling of a book in her hands opening up a new world. These memories, which she had buried to survive, now returned with a painful but necessary clarity. Clara also remembered the lost photos, the ones her temporary adoptive family had taken and never seen again. Seeing her childhood face in Whitmore's house had rekindled those forgotten fragments. She suddenly understood that her story, her pain, and her resilience had been observed and respected from the shadows. Someone had believed in her when she herself struggled to do so. The more she reminisced, the more she felt a strange strength rising within her. Every trial she had endured, every tear, every night of anguish, had forged a determination that could now be used to serve others. She realized that her past was not a burden, but a hidden treasure, a source of experience and wisdom she could share. Whitmore was right, her story held value, not only for her, but for young girls facing similar situations. She saw herself as a little girl, facing challenges, rising above them all, learning to smile even in pain. And she understood that this smile, this inner strength, could become a guide for those who felt lost. The day passed incredibly quickly. Clara jotted down her memories in a notebook, tracing each significant moment of her childhood, thinking about how she could transform them into advice, lessons, and encouragement for others. She knew she had to draw on this memory, however painful, to find the right words and the strength needed for her new role. That evening, she reread her notes and looked at the childhood photo, now reproduced in her notebook. A wave of emotion washed over her. She felt vulnerable, but also ready. Ready to face her past, ready to reveal herself, and ready to help those who needed to see that even in adversity, life could offer hope and opportunity. For the first time in a long time, Clara felt a fragile but real balance between her painful memories and her new life. She understood that to move forward, she had to accept her past, embrace it, and use it as a foundation to build something greater than herself. The next day, she would go to Whitmore's to officially begin her work with the humanitarian project. But that evening, alone in her apartment, she smiled for the first time in a long time, realizing that her past, once a source of pain, was now her greatest strength. The next morning, Clara woke with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Today she would meet the first young women she would support as part of the humanitarian project led by Alexander Whitmore. She knew this meeting would be a pivotal moment, not only for them, but for her as well. When she arrived at Whitmore's grand home, he was waiting for her in the lobby, dressed in a simple but impeccable suit. "Ready for your first meeting?" he asked with a smile. Clara nodded, trying to hide her emotions. I think so." Whitmore led her to a spacious room designed to host educational workshops and interactive activities. The walls were decorated with colorful paintings and inspirational posters, with encouraging quotes like, "Even in adversity, you can shine." Tables and chairs were arranged in a circle to encourage discussion and closeness. Shortly after, the girls arrived, supervised by project educators. They ranged in age from 8 to 16, each with a mixture of curiosity, shyness, and suspicion in their eyes. Clara felt her heart sink as she watched them. She remembered herself at their age, the same worried eyes, the same hesitant gestures. Whitmore introduced her. "Ladies, this is Clara Johnson. She grew up in a similar environment to yours and has overcome challenges that you may be facing today. She will accompany you and share her experience with you." A respectful silence fell. Clara took a deep breath, remembering each difficult moment of her childhood. Then, in a soft but firm voice, she began, "Hello, my name is Clara. I know many of you feel alone sometimes, or think that no one understands you. I felt that way too when I was a child. But I've learned that even in the darkest times, there is hope and people willing to help you." The girls listened attentively, some with shining eyes, others with wary postures. Clara continued, "I am here to show you that you can overcome difficulties. Every trial you go through can become a strength if you choose to get up and continue. You are not alone." As she spoke, Clara felt an inner warmth grow within her. She realized that her painful past could truly inspire these young girls, that her failures and suffering were not in vain, but useful. Some of the girls began to smile shyly, others nodded in understanding. Whitmore watched in silent satisfaction. He knew this first meeting would be crucial, and Clara had just proven she was ready. After the session, as the girls filed out, Clara turned to Whitmore. "It was more intense than I imagined. Some of them remind me so much of myself." Whitmore nodded. "That's normal. And that's why you're the perfect person for this role. Your story is a bridge between them and hope." Clara took a deep breath, knowing that this role would require courage and commitment, but also a complete opening of her heart. She had chosen to transform her life and her past into a strength for others. And in that moment, she knew she would never go back. She left the room with a new sense of purpose. For the first time, Clara Johnson felt she had found her true mission: to guide, inspire, and transform the lives of those who needed her, while reconciling her own past with her present. In the following days, Clara became fully involved in the humanitarian project. Every morning, she woke up with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She knew the girls were counting on her, and that her role went far beyond simple support. She had to become a living model of resilience and hope. Whitmore accompanied her for the first few days, but he gradually let Clara take the lead. That morning, the activity room welcomed a small group of girls aged 10 to 14. Their faces were varied, some shy, others wary, a few already brave and curious. Clara took a deep breath and began. "Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about you, your strengths, and how your experiences can become tools for moving forward in life." She invited each girl to introduce herself and share a memory or difficult feeling she had experienced. Some of the stories were heartbreaking: broken families, nights alone, daily humiliations. Clara listened attentively, feeling every word as if reliving her own past. But she never let her pain show. She knew her role was to transform these emotions into encouragement. At the end of the session, a little girl, Jasmine, shyly raised her hand. How did you keep going, even when all seemed lost?" she asked in a trembling voice. Clara smiled softly. "That's a good question, Jasmine. It's never easy. There were times when I felt like giving up. But I've learned that even in pain, there is a little light. That light is hope, inner strength, and sometimes the help of kind people we meet along the way. I had someone who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Jasmine's eyes lit up. Clara realized then that this sharing, however simple, could be the first step toward rebuilding confidence and self-esteem. However, not everything went smoothly. Some girls remained suspicious, refusing to participate or open up. Others fought for attention, creating a tense atmosphere. Clara had to learn to handle these situations with patience and tact, sometimes even using humor or small strategies to encourage cooperation. Whitmore watched these moments from the entrance to the room, impressed by how instinctively Clara found the right words. "You were born for this role, Clara," he murmured to himself. "Your past is no longer a wound, it is your most valuable weapon." At the end of the day, exhausted but satisfied, Clara sat on a bench in the villa's garden. The sun was setting behind the trees, tinting the sky with pink and gold hues. She reflected on everything she had accomplished and everything that still lay ahead. Every smile, every step forward, every moment of confidence gained with these girls was a victory. Clara understood then that this project would not only change their lives, but hers as well. She felt stronger, more determined, and more connected to her past than she had ever been. And as the evening breeze caressed her face, she knew that, despite the challenges, she was exactly where she was meant to be. A few weeks had passed since Clara began her work with the girls. She had begun to gain their trust, and some of them were slowly revealing themselves, sharing their fears, dreams, and personal stories. But today, an unexpected situation would test her strength and her ability to guide these fragile young lives. As the session drew to a close, one of the teachers rushed into the room. "Clara, we have a problem," she said, breathless. "One of the girls, Mia, has left the villa. She's in the nearby park, alone." Clara's blood boiled. Mia, an 11-year-old girl, had always been one of the most reserved, fragile, and suspicious. Clara knew she needed constant support to keep from withdrawing into herself. "Show me where she is," Clara ordered calmly but firmly. Whitmore, who was present, intervened. "I'll go with you. We'll find her quickly." The villa overlooked a large wooded park, and Clara ran through the paths, her heart pounding. She thought of Mia, alone and vulnerable, and felt a protective anger rise within her. How could such a brave but fragile girl be left to fend for herself in a potentially dangerous place? After a few minutes that seemed like an eternity, Clara spotted Mia sitting on a bench, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders were shaking, and she was sobbing silently. Clara approached quietly, kneeling down at her level. "Mia, it's me, Clara. Don't worry, I'm here." Her voice was soft, but firm, full of authority and warmth. The girl looked up, tears rolling down her cheeks. I just wanted to leave. I'm not like the others. I'll never make it," she whispered, her voice cracking with fear and despair. Clara placed a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me, Mia. You're exactly like every girl I've met here. Fragile, yes, but strong too. Whenever you fall, you can get back up. And I'll be there to show you how. You're not alone, you've never been alone." Mia sobbed for a moment longer, then snuggled into Clara's side. This simple gesture, yet full of trust and relief, brought warmth to Clara's heart. She understood that her role was not only educational, but profoundly human, to be there for these girls, to offer them a refuge and emotional security they had not known. Whitmore arrived at that moment and placed a comforting hand on Clara's shoulder. "You did exactly the right thing." Clara looked at Mia, then at the park, and thought that every challenge, every crisis, every fear she faced now was an opportunity to make a difference. These moments, though difficult, forged her courage and solidified her role. As Clara brought Mia back to the villa, she felt a deep certainty. She was exactly where she was meant to be, guiding these young women with the strength of her past and the heart of her present. And she knew that, despite the trials ahead, she could face anything, because she had found her vocation and her true mission. A few months had passed since the project began. Clara had gained the trust of all the girls and was beginning to see the first results of her commitment. Some of the girls were showing real improvements in their self-confidence and ability to express themselves. But this success would bring unexpected challenges. One morning, as Clara was preparing the room for a new session, Whitmore entered with a concerned face. "Clara, we have a serious problem." Clara felt her heart sink. "What? What's going on?" Whitmore handed him an open letter sent to several project partners. It was signed anonymously and contained false but disturbing accusations, claiming that the project was mismanaged and that the girls were not being properly protected. The letter called for an immediate halt to all activities, threatening to cut funding and end the program. Clara felt a wave of anger and frustration wash over her. How could anyone question the work and efforts of these girls and all they had accomplished? But she knew she had to remain calm in order to react effectively. Whitmore placed a hand on her shoulder. "We have to handle this carefully. If we lose our temper, it could really harm the girls and the project." Clara took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay. We're going to show the truth. We're going to prove what we're doing, not just with words, but with facts." She immediately convened the educational team and organized a crisis meeting. Together, they decided to document all project activities, film the sessions, and collect testimonies from the girls and their families. Clara knew that this rational and transparent approach was the only way to protect the integrity of the project and defend the girls. Over the next few days, Clara worked tirelessly. She made sure every activity was well documented, every progress recorded, and that the girls felt supported despite the stress. She also spent time comforting those who were worried, explaining that no one had the right to question their worth or their efforts. Then came the day she was to present the evidence to the partners and sponsors. Clara stood at the front of the room, her heart pounding, but her voice firm and clear. She showed the videos, the detailed reports, and the testimonies of the girls and educators. Every image, every word confirmed the truth. The project was working, and the girls were benefiting from a safe and supportive environment. At the end of the presentation, silence reigned for a few seconds before the partners began to applaud. Whitmore smiled, visibly proud, but it was Clara who shone. She had weathered the storm, defended the girls, and protected the initiative with courage and intelligence. Later, in Whitmore's office, he said to her, "You proved today that you're not just a guide for these girls, you're a leader. You have the strength, the determination, and the heart to overcome any challenge." Clara smiled, feeling a surge of pride and relief. She knew more obstacles would come, but she now understood that with courage, perseverance, and truth, she could overcome any challenge and continue to transform the lives of these young girls. Clara's humanitarian project was now several months old, and its results were beginning to show clearly. The young women she supported were gaining confidence and self-esteem, and some were even daring to dream of careers and lives they would never have imagined before. That morning, Whitmore had invited her to a special meeting. The project's key partners and sponsors were present, and the atmosphere in the large conference room was both solemn and warm. Clara felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She knew this moment symbolized not only recognition of her work, but also validation of everything she had gone through to get here. Whitmore spoke first. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate not only the success of the project, but also the person who made it possible. Clara Johnson is not only a guide for these young girls, she is the very embodiment of resilience and hope." Clara felt her heart pound as applause erupted in the room. The young women from the project, invited for the occasion, looked at her in admiration. Some had eyes shining with pride and emotion. Clara took a deep breath and stood up. I can't do this alone," she began, her voice shaky but clear. "Every girl here has taught me as much as I have taught them. Their courage, perseverance, and strength inspire me every day. This project is proof that, even in the most difficult situations, it is possible to transform pain into strength, and despair into hope." The room erupted into applause again, and Clara felt a deep warmth fill her. She remembered the little girl in the photo, alone and scared, who never imagined she would one day be recognized and celebrated for her strength. After the meeting, Whitmore took her to the villa's terrace, where the sun was setting behind the trees. The warm colors of the sky reflected a moment of peace and accomplishment. "You've accomplished something incredible, Clara," he said softly. "Your past is no longer a wound, it has become your greatest strength. And because of you, so many young girls now see a future full of possibilities." Clara smiled, her eyes moist with gratitude and emotion. She thought about everything she had been through, the orphanage, the loneliness, the doubts, the hopeless nights. All of it had shaped the woman she had become, a woman capable of inspiring, guiding, and transforming lives. That evening, as she walked back to her room, Clara looked at the photo of her childhood, now framed on her desk. She smiled softly. The frightened little girl had grown up, found her voice, and transformed her life and the lives of others. For the first time in a long time, Clara Johnson felt complete. Her past, present, and future had been reconciled. She now knew she had found her true mission in life, to be a light to those in the shadows, a guide to those who felt lost, and a living example that resilience and hope can transform lives. And as night fell on the villa, Clara understood that, despite all the trials and challenges, she had finally found her place in the world, at peace with her past and ready to build a bright future. A few years had passed since Clara Johnson began her role in Whitmore's humanitarian project. The little girl she had once been seemed so far away, replaced by a strong, confident woman deeply determined to transform the world around her. The center now welcomed dozens of young girls each year. Many of them, once shy and reticent, became brilliant students, artists, budding scientists, or young leaders in their communities. Testimonies poured in, showing Clara's direct impact on their lives. "Thanks to you, I believed in myself for the first time," or "You showed me that my voice matters." Clara strolled through the center's garden, watching the girls play and chat energetically. She smiled, remembering the early days when some refused to even look up or speak. Every step forward, every smile, was a victory. Whitmore, now more than a mentor, had become a close friend and unwavering supporter. "You've created something magnificent here, Clara," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "What you've done is beyond anything we could have imagined. You've transformed lives and continue to do so every day." Clara looked around her, her heart filled with gratitude. She thought back to that childhood photo, to the lost and alone little girl, and understood how unpredictable life could be. She, who had believed she had no power over her destiny, now had the opportunity to change dozens of lives. And then there were those more intimate moments, the quiet pride of seeing a young girl earn her first scholarship, the shared joy when another won a writing competition, or simply the shy smile of those who were beginning to believe in themselves. Each moment was a reminder that resilience and hope could be shared, from heart to heart. Clara knew she could never forget her past. But she had learned to embrace it, to use it as a source of strength, and to transform pain into light for others. She had become the woman she was meant to be, a guide, a mentor, and above all, a living source of inspiration. As the sun set behind the center, painting the sky in golden and pink hues, Clara felt a deep peace. Her past, once heavy and lonely, had transformed into a lasting legacy, the hope, strength, and light she offered to so many young girls. And in that perfect moment of calm and satisfaction, Clara understood that her true mission was not only to help others grow, but to show the whole world that no difficult childhood, no past pain, could extinguish the inner light of those who believe in themselves. Clara's smile was reflected in the eyes of the girls playing around her. She had found her place in the world, and through her actions, she had helped many other hearts find theirs.